Hey folks, Future Adam here. For some reason, my audio settings got changed and I am coming in hot on this episode. So I apologize. It's peaking out a little bit more than I would like. I trimmed it up the best I could, but slightly embarrassing considering the flawless audio from our guest. So please excuse the audio disparity and I hope you enjoy the episode. On this episode about voice acting, we talk with guest Scott Whyte about his history with voice acting, paying it forward, that time he won like 15 copies of a shitty Game Boy game, and we die in Dragon's Lair.
A lot.
A lot.
Hey, you should use the magic sword.
Link, my boy. This piece is what all true heroes strive for.
I won!
Welcome to Halftone Takes, high contrast conversations where we zoom out to see the bigger picture. I am Adam Bucheri, aka and with me as always is my co-host.
I am Corey Revis, aka the goofy nickname character number 2.
And with us today we have our special guest. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Scott Whyte, otherwise known as Male NPC number 17, aka the one you always walk by and never engage with.
Can I get a frag out?
Frag out!
I need a medic!
There you go.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. Just for a little bit of context, through my work, I have the great pleasure to work with some voice actors, and that is how I met Scott, and Scott here has been a genuine delight. We are actual friends. We text. And
he just met me.
You haven't earned the text yet. No,
yeah,
by the end of this podcast, it's either going to go well or it's not.
Oh man, I hope it goes well. He says out loud with meaning to be in this thought bubble.
He says slightly sweaty.
He says not slightly sweaty.
But yeah, Scott, you are a cool dude. You are an interesting dude, and you have a very cool job. When you are not recording stuff for me, you are a full-time professional voice actor. You have credits in tons and tons of stuff, both for screen acting as well as voice acting. And the narrow slice of that that particularly stood out to me in our conversations is what I am calling, and maybe I might be inventing vocabulary because I don't know if anyone else calls it this, but I've referred to it as you being a grunt double, which is a really wonderful intersection between your impersonation skills and the need in film and games for ADR and post-recording voices, specifically like for effort noises or action scenes or those kind of things. So Scott, if you in your own words could tell us a little bit about that very narrow slice of the job, which I think is really interesting.
Well, I want to first thank you very much for having me on your podcast today. I'm just a normal guy who does voiceover at certain times. But as you could tell, I have a normal voice like you and
okay,
Corey.
Now you're a fisherman.
Okay, yes, of course, but when you're sitting on the edge of the dock and you're trying to introduce yourself to someone, I don't know why all of a sudden he's sort of an Irish fisherman or something. This is when things go really bad and the ratings just dramatically drop in your show. No, all that stuff, grunt double is, I don't know if I've specifically heard the words grunt double before, but I mean, definitely I've heard the word grunts many times because we have to do it in so many of the projects I get to work in. And, and being a double is par for the course, to become a double, to match some other actor in a film or TV show or cartoon or video game. And I've had a great career of being a double, actually, if I think of everything from voicing Crash Bandicoot to, in video games to voicing characters like, recently voiced Skeletor for this Call of Duty stuff, and and in those specific things, or working on films where I've had to voice match certain actors. It's kind of, you are their double. It's almost like being a stunt double. Instead of jumping out of the room, I need to sound like that actor in a scene when they can't get him, or if it's a big scream or something and the actor doesn't want to do it, then I come in. So yeah, but it's very wild to sit back when I do and think about what I do for a living because it's just it's wild.
I do have one question. You
Sure.
just said, like, if there's a loud scream and an actor doesn't want to do it, I would do it.
Yeah.
Why would an actor not want to do that? Like,
That's a good question. These questions shouldn't be answered because if they do, I might be out of a job. But no,
Okay.
no. Usually it's stuff like I find that there's many different reasons why. Normally, I find that like on sets, it's usually an audio issue on set. Maybe there's explosions going off while the actor is yelling, so you're hearing, the actual raw audio of that actor screaming. It maybe the sound was turned up a little too loud, so when he screamed, it distorted the sound of the signal. Like I said, explosions or background noise or other actors yelling also maybe is, throwing off the sound, or maybe the mic just being under the clothes is kind of like muting to. So then, and then it becomes an issue of, well, can we get that actor? That's an actor that actually lives in Africa that the closest studio is 6 hours away, which is a true story from a project I worked on when they had to replace an actor. So that's kind of, that's sort of, I guess, some of the reasons why. I'm sure there's a myriad of reasons. And sometimes it's just an actor's on set and they don't like the sound of that actor. So we just need to replace their voice entirely, just do a new voice over that person. So it's just a myriad of reasons. And it can be anything and everything. But usually I find it's technical stuff.
Okay. I was just asking because I was curious. I was like, I know there's probably a lot of reasons is I don't want to ruin my voice.
Oh no,
So,
there are people that don't want to ruin their voice, and there's some actors that I've heard who have yelled that you definitely go, you should probably replace that.
Sure.
Either maybe sometimes it's an older actor that can't really give what they are known
like
for
project
giving,
or something as much.
yeah, projecting and or just selling the bit,
Okay.
It's so funny because if you think about horror films or things, like screaming is not
Oh,
necessarily the natural reaction. So there's been horror films I've worked on where the actor on set is kind of given a, like a big reaction, but it's because it's natural, and the natural reaction for that actor or actress or whatever wasn't to, scream.
Oh, yeah.
So that they kind of acted it out, and then the producer's like, well, that's not working. We need something with the music to play over it and stuff. So we need to put something in there that just kind of works. So, so that's another reason. I hope I'm not giving these long-winded answers, but
Oh no.
No, you're doing great.
This is
but
great.
it's kind of like whatever you can imagine probably has happened on a stage, and then probably stuff you haven't imagined, both good and bad. The sound. Why isn't there sound here? This you should have been. And it's like, well, you can ask the fired sound guy that didn't hit record when we shot this. So now we need to
absolutely.
re-record everything. So and that's a true story. I did have an on-camera career before I kind of got more into the VO stuff, and I worked on a film, and we were on day 3, already 2 days done, working on a horror film, and someone called out and said, "Hey, who's pulling focus on this camera?"
Oh,
And
boy.
everyone-
Oh jeez.
Oh, no.
2 days wasted, which led to one of the greatest experiences of my life working on a film, but also one of the worst. Maybe it didn't turn out as good as it should have, But when you're three days in and someone's like, "Who's pulling focus?" and it seems, and so half the crew was like, "What do you mean we have to pull focus? Like this isn't just an autofocus camera?" So a lot of experiences I've had in my career.
Yeah.
But
That's really interesting, though.
those would be some good reasons why you just replace audio or an actor wouldn't. There's also issues where, and if it is like a distorted microphone or something, maybe it's because it's a big film, that big name actor isn't available after they've shot the film, or they get him for a few days and they realize, oh, we need even more stuff. but that person was only contractually agreed to, let's say, you get them for an hour in the studio, and that's it to do everything. And they go, gosh, we have 3 hours of work. Now they come to someone like me or other people that might jump in and we're right sounding for that job. So,
Okay.
Very, very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of logistics involved to me for like what creates basically the opportunities for you to have this career is just because, you know, for one reason or another, like you're the best person for the job at the moment, which is I don't want to say that to sound dismissive. I think that's really cool. And also, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. Before we go any further, I do want to say I had forgot, but there's also a little behind the scenes video that shows you doing all of the effort noises for Venom, I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
The motorcycle chase on Venom.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean in the movie?
In the movie Venom, he is being Tom Hardy's grunt double, Mr.
That's
Scott
awesome.
Whyte. But you get to see him working the process of it. And that is a really great concrete insight to that. I will definitely put that into the show notes. I encourage listeners to go and check that out just to see, some of the actual process, because for me, I can't get enough of that stuff. And I love watching those kind of behind the scenes.
No, I'm very lucky. I mean, there's an element. At the end of the day, it's like I've realized that my best place in this business is to just be the tool that productions need for things, and really just get rid of that kind of like, oh, it's all about me. I mean, in the moment, it is kind of all about you because the focus is on you standing in front of the mic and make it sound good. And that's a high pressure, like, you know, that's not like a red carpet, like, hey, take photos, sign autograph. That's like, oh, wow, this is a $400 million movie, and I need to make this, I need to sell this.
You're performing, and everybody's staring at you.
Exactly. So yeah, you know, there's a little bit of pressure sometimes, but it's very interesting to be I've kind of lost, the direction of what we were talking about, but yeah, being in that position, when I am sounding right for the role, and I'm there, and I do sound like that specific actor or whatever, that's a really great feeling to know that I'm helping this production that I then later see in theaters. It's like, wow, I was a piece of that. But yes, getting back to that, just being a cog and like, what do you need from me is kind of how I show up every day, as opposed to like, what can I perform for you, you know? And I think that is actually that arc of like kind of taking that step back has allowed me to kind of maybe succeed a little bit more than I would have if I held on to my teenager, like, I want to do red carpets and be a star, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I've talked about this before, but like on the show, I've talked about the difference between like someone who wants to write a book, which is to say someone who likes the process and wants to sit down and do the work, versus someone who wants to have written a book and wants to shake hands and get their picture taken and all that. And like the difference in like that core fantasy of like what that person is imagining for their career. And I'm very much in the former camp. I want to do the stuff. I want to get my hands dirty. I want to be involved in the act of creation. And then I don't know. I've never had to deal with, any kind of meaningful pressure or limelight, but like it doesn't sound like the thing that I care about necessarily.
Yeah. Well, usually that's how I see it, as Adam gets to create, and then I will be his publicist, and I will market it for him because he hates. If you listen to any of the other things that we've done, you start to learn Adam hates trailers. And I love them. So I'll cut it together.
It's not like Corey loves trailers as like their own separate art form, which I do understand and appreciate. And once in a blue moon, there is a trailer that comes around and I'm like, ooh, there's craft, and I love that. Yeah. It's my objection is more like you're in the movie theater and then you're watching a 4-minute trailer that just tells you the entire story, and everyone's exhausted by that.
Yeah, but that's not a good trailer to me. Like I've said, I was like, that's not a good trailer.
That's a Netflix trailer. You know how Netflix just tells you the whole movie? Like there's definitely a crescendo where you're like, this trailer must stop now. And then it just keeps going. It's like, by the way, then the Titanic hits the iceberg and is sinking, and they end up on the wood together, and she's like, don't let go. It's like, oh my goodness. Why Why
I
did you
know.
tell me?
It's like,
But,
yeah.
but like we've all seen that so many times of just like,
Totally.
in the theater recently, and it's just like, this is act 1, this is act 2, this is act 3, and it's like, bro, come on.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. No, my wife is good. She shuts it off. She'll be like, "Okay, stop the trailer now. We've seen
Yeah.
enough." But
Yep.
but I always get enticed. I'm like, look, if I just see the third act and it takes 30 seconds, I save myself, 40 minutes.
Exactly. I was never going to watch the Gran Turismo movie. Like, of course, sure.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow,
it's
his
amazing.
dad died, huh? That's wild. Damn, that's
Wow.
crazy. All right.
You mean to tell me
Wait,
Bruce
his
Wayne
dad
is
died?
Batman?
Man, are you serious? His dad did die?
What are you talking about?
Corey.
I thought you were still talking about Gran Turismo. Like, come on, man.
I feel you just unlocked something in Corey that just is now like.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, you don't have to ruin the whole thing.
I didn't ruin it. That's what we're talking about.
I just didn't know his dad died in the trailer. Like, I was about to be like, come on, man.
That's amazing. But he didn't die. But the dad didn't die like in the movie. It was just a trailer. It was like a B-side for
Yeah,
the trailer.
I know. It was like a Racer X situation. Psych.
Totally. Yeah,
We gotcha.
They should do that. Should be the next step of trailers. Like totally, totally throws off the storyline,
yeah,
and then when
you
you
just-
get there, you're like, what?
There has been we're going off topic, but like this is a fun digression to me. Like there are people who have been like up in arms because it's just like there was the movie trailer for the 2008 Adrian Brody Predator movie, and in that sequence they show a shot in the trailer where there are multiple Predator lasers pointing at Adrian Brody, but in the final movie there's only one, and this is false advertising, and I'm gonna get upset about it. And I'm just like,
That's the
Bro.
wrong hill to die on.
this is an alien emotion that you are feeling. I
no
don't know
pun
what-
intended.
Hey, this is an alien versus predator emotion that you're feeling at this moment, and I don't understand you as a person.
This is now an Alien versus Predator fan podcast, brought to you in part by.
Circling back to my original thing is I just find that interesting that a lot of like VO people, they just, you can tell who's better suited for like doing just all kinds of, pardon the phrasing, mouth movements all the time and stuff like that.
No, you're right, Corey. I mean, like, and then like in the actual voiceover world, you'll find that certain actors are very, there's different, again, like a tool, there's utility players for each genre. There's so much VO stuff, you have like categories like video games or, the movie, the ADR, voice matching like I do, with the celebrity voice matching, or looping where you're just adding background. You're basically background Foley. You're just people talking background Foley. You have people that succeed and do well in like, radio commercials, TV commercials, people that succeed in animation, and they kind of like, they stay in their own lanes. Some actors, the anime dubbing, some of those people just do the anime and dubbing stuff, and that's what their calling is, and same with loopers and some video game people. It's like that's what they do so well. Yeah, and then there's some utility players, like I sort of have fallen in that category, and I've been very lucky that I get to. I'm like it's like the saying master, what is it? Like jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
That is sort of,
is oftentimes better than master of one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I find that I have more fun just kind of jumping from one job to the next, depending how the subjects change. Maybe today I'm voicing a bad guy in a Batman game, and the next day maybe I'm talking about diabetic injectables, which is always a pleasure. So,
And sometimes you're working with me, and we're pausing halfway through the script and just being like, what the fuck is the tariff engine? I'm sorry. We're just saying words.
You know what? But that's my job as a voice actor, to just say those words and make it sound like I know what I'm saying. But
Absolutely.
But yes, we definitely have had those moments, Adam, as you know, where it's like, what am I saying? And you're like, I'm not sure.
Know.
Keep going.
Keep going. Yeah, I know. I knew you were going to say that.
We've had all moments. Adam knows sometimes. Sometimes he's like, I don't know. Let's just keep going.
It's fine.
Love it. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
No, but it always sounds great, man. And sometimes me knowing or not knowing certain things, I think I was saying to you, maybe Adam the other day, or someone else maybe, but it's like I don't need to know all the information sometimes, depending on my
Mm,
character. In fact, like this goes back to when I was doing on-camera stuff. I would just like read my scenes in the script, like
yeah.
especially in horror films. It's like I just want to read my scripts, my scenes, and when I die, I want to end that script and not read anymore. In fact, one of my favorite horror films is a film called Reeker I did. You know, I just didn't read it intentionally. I mean, we did the table read and I got to hear it all, but
Mm,
but I didn't really absorb any of that knowledge. And all I really cared about, because I think the coolest thing about horror film is not knowing what's going on, and like, I mean, it just plays into the honesty of like, what the heck, are my
Yeah.
friends
sure.
still alive? Are they dead? Where am I in this world? So it's like I don't need the whole backstory, and that sort of applies to my voiceover stuff. Sometimes I want the time to know my character's backstory and all this stuff because it does affect my performance. And sometimes, or most of the time, for me, you're always the NPC player, and it's like, you know what? I don't need to. I don't care. There's a post-apocalyptic world out there, and blah blah blah
Mhm.
blah blah. I'm just selling this guy water. And
I was about to say fish.
yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, there you go. Fish.
You want some
Yeah,
fish?
there's always a fish market. Hey, best fish in town. Hey, you give it to me now. 20 quib. I'll take it from, or whatever. It's like, yeah,
Hey, I'm
totally.
fishing here.
Yeah, totally. But again, it's like coming back to the tool thing. It's like, what's your job in this? Are you here to like be a lead character in this film
Yeah.
or this game and drive the story? Or are you just kind of supporting the guy? And sometimes not knowing your character is the best thing, to just kind of like be a piece of that, but let that world is already moving and you're not part of it. So just be the guy that's selling fish, and don't try to make a meal out of it, Pun
Yeah.
intended, as
And,
you're
and like, shockingly, I did a little bit of theater back in high school and college.
knew?
No one could have guessed. But like that was a real lesson for me, because there was like one performance where I was just this bit character and I like hammed it up in the background, right? And the audience laughed and that made me feel great. And then the person pulled me aside, was like, "Hey, I get that you're having fun and you're doing this, but you're pulling the focus away from where it needs to be. And you're not serving the overall production." And that was a real lesson to me. And so like I feel like there's a kind of person who might decry that attitude as either being lazy or not engaged or something. And I think that's totally false. I think it's, you need to bring an appropriate amount of energy, an appropriate amount of research, an appropriate amount of yourself to the role.
Totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that also comes down to like casting directors and directors. It ties into like the relationships you build in this industry. They
Mhm.
say the industry works with networks and like it's all about who you know, and I definitely
Totally.
agree with that. But it went from me, the arc of me learning that went from like, gosh, I wish I was like on the inside and had network people. And then you
Mhm.
kind of start making some contacts and connections, and you kind of see that, oh, they call me back and they bring me back. It's not like but it's more like you're a good, again, the tool concept. It's like you're a good
Mhm.
tool for us. It's like
Mhm.
you keep hiring me because I do that one piece really well for you. So that
Yeah.
it makes sense that I call. It's not necessarily because we're friends. The friendship has just kind of opened those doors. But it's
Yeah.
like they learn what I am as a tool, and then I'm a
Mhm.
tool. No,
Huge tool.
but then it's like they just call me. So some of these games and things, it's like we need NPC number 13 again, and it's like,
Yeah.
that's cool. I'm happy to be that.
Yeah.
But then you can get stuck behind like, the like, oh, well, I want to get to that next level. And there was a time when it was like I was forever like, tough guy number 12, like
Of course.
civilian
Almost
13.
almost a typecasting situation.
Yeah, yeah. In a way, it is very much typecasted, Corey, because it is kind of like And I was told by a director, it's like, you know why you always get that role? Because you're so versatile and you're so good at being versatile, and they just want versatile actors. So I get on this game, I may be playing 5, 6 characters in this game, but that's because that's what I'm known for, and those people know that I'm good at that. So when they need to check these boxes of like, who's a good lead character, it says, well, Scott's really good at these multiple. Let's put him in that box. So,
Yeah.
and it's only been semi-recently, I would say, where I've had these great experiences where teams are now getting to know more about me and like giving me these opportunities to voice a character like Skeletor or Crash Bandicoot, You know, I mean, the Homer Simpson thing was from a long time ago, and that's how I transitioned from on-camera acting into the voiceover stuff.
Okay, yeah.
But that was a blessing right out the gate. That helped me get my voiceover agent, and that helped get the ball rolling real fast. So, yeah, and that's all thanks to a good friend of mine, Robin Atkin Downs, who's like a huge voice actor and a friend of mine, and just an amazing person who's opened up doors for other people other than me. So, yeah. Anyway.
Nice.
Yeah,
very
Scott,
nice.
you want to drop that Homer Simpson on us just real quick?
I want to drop a Homer Simpson on you. Why would I do that? I'm here on a podcast with Corey and Adam, and I'm NPC number 17. No,
What is this? Hit and run?
yeah, totally.
And also, just one of my favorite things, I've talked about this before, is watching voice actors perform. It's so delightful to me to watch that. To do the Homer Simpson voice, you have to like wiggle your fingers and like
if the fingers aren't kind of going,
donuts,
but
like
it's very true. It's like I've watched impressions, when Dan is on his, like old Conan O'Brien clips and stuff. He's like, "Can you give me a little Homer?" I notice he kind of like sits up straight and he buries his chin into his.
When he does Homer, he does it down here, and he kind of almost stiffens up a little bit when he does Homer.
So it allows, placement and movement and how you kind of do. I always do the finger thing a lot because I feel that there's a flowiness to Homer's voice, and so
Homer loves to have a little bit of musicality in his voice.
Maybe not that much, but yeah, it's the little things I do when I do different voices is always good. Yeah.
I find that super fascinating because I thought I always thought that was cool, but I thought I was weird for thinking that was cool because like for old like animated like Justice League stuff where I would watch Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill beside each other. And they're playing off of each other, but Mark Hamill is so wild doing like Joker, and then Kevin Conroy barely moves, and they get such good performances out of them.
Love
I'm
it.
like, that's so awesome.
But that all plays into how great these, the actors. It's a testament to the actors, really, how they create these characters and what they need to do or not do. Yeah, you look at the Mark Hamill stuff; he's kind of like hunched over and he's kind of really,
he's real twisted up and he's constantly like taking his hands and like curling them into.
Definitely. Yeah, no, Mark is one who lives the character, and I'm sure just as much, Kevin was doing Batman, sitting up straight and he kind of like kept that poise, that. Yeah. But I love watching actors work, voice actors work. I mean, it really thrills me, and of course I only do it because of the greats that I watched that did it, And you guys being animators, the flowiness of it's like, even these little movements and things really bring the characters to life. And that translates to the old animation stuff where, you'd see these characters the animators would be in front of the mirror like, oh, how does that look? And how would you say that both your animation styles, not going off subject, but like how would your styles of animation differ from each other? You're just inherent.
Very much so.
I can answer this very easily. Adam is way more I guess we've kind of not necessarily like met in the middle, but we, at least way back in the day, like he was the very emotional guy. He loved very subtle, movements and storytelling elements that basically it's like, staring and getting that, like pulling that emotion out of you. Which is like really, I thought he was really good at it. I still think he's really good at it. Yeah. I was more of the action-oriented guy. I loved broad, huge movements and like squash. I was really into squash and stretch and rubber banding all over the place and, and stuff like that. Reminiscent of, I'm looking for the word.
Reminiscent.
Reminiscing.
Reminisce colon right? From the ashes.
No, stop! You're messing me up. Like, just of like 30s or 40s, like Looney Tunes.
Yeah. Rubber banding.
I was gonna say that you were always very Chuck Jones, very rubber hose.
Yeah.
Really favored action and snappiness and like a strong elasticity to your stuff.
Back when I was doing 2D animation stuff, which you guys don't even know, Adam. I don't.
This
know.
is new to
Nice.
me.
Yeah. No, I don't want to. I don't want to change the subject. I'm gonna, do a mic drop and then we can move on. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was going to say, this is the subject. Keep going.
Animation was really, but it does tie in because it does tie in with voiceover actually very much.
Mhm.
I mean, again, movement and flow and character creation and stuff. When I took animation lessons at, let's see, I did that at 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
14 and 15. My goal originally was to be, I saw this video game called Dragon's Lair back in the 80s.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
And that
Let's
felt,
go.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's go.
That's my stuff. That's my stuff right there.
Oh, I can still finish that game without dying if the
Really?
machine.
Oh, man.
If the machine is right. I'm very
I was
good.
about
Yeah.
to say salute to you.
So I know. They all kind of. It seems like over the years they all kind of have a different, just the control delay of whatever. Anyway, but that game really got me into animation, voice acting indirectly, and made me very aware of movement and stuff. Watching Dirk, like how he would pause and look up, and it was like everything about
Or how he even screams every
totally.
time.
Totally. Oh, I've used believe me, there's been so many. Yup. I've had so many games. Whenever I can, I throw a Dirk the Daring into any video game and
Nice.
stuff. Like whenever it's like, oh, he's questioned, he just got hit on the head. Go.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Oh,
It's like I always try.
man, you're speaking my language now.
Say what you will about Dirk the Daring, but man knows how to die.
Oh,
Yeah, oh, man.
for sure. He's the king of dying.
A lot.
He's almost that original,
Yeah.
like Indiana Jones archetype. But what Indiana Jones became by the third film, it was like that kind of clueless, a little bit of that bumbling, who somehow survives or doesn't sometimes, But brilliant character. Don Bluth is the man. I actually own. Over the years, I've collected a bunch of animation cells from Dragon's
really?
Lair, and so I have about
Yeah.
8 or 9 images now, like that I've kind of framed up and stuff. And it's amazing. I want to eventually I'd love to have a piece from each room, from the Dragon's Lair world.
Oh, that would be incredible.
So yeah, that would be pretty cool. So
Yeah.
I'm working at it. I got some cool. I'll send you guys a picture at some point. Anyway, getting back to acting, it does all tie in that flow of movement, the being aware of how a character moves and stuff, because all that stuff helps. It is voice acting, as every voice actor says. It's voice acting, but it really is just acting, and you have to put your whole body into it. And I'm one of those people that I find, again, depending on the role, that's definitely what I need to do. And then there's other roles where it's like, I can just sit for this because it's not helping nor hindering what I'm trying to accomplish. So, but yeah, it's a great. Yeah, it's a study of just movement, really, and how you work your voice is like playing an instrument, and and so yeah, I'm very lucky that I've been given this gift. But it was just since I was a kid, just again since Dragon's Lair and growing up, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Simpsons. He-Man. I mean, these are all shows that I love. I mean, definitely Crash Bandicoot. I mean, these characters I've been able to become the voices are directly from my heritage and my lineage and like what made me want to do what I'm doing. So when you say like Homer Simpson, it's like, what season do you want of Homer Simpson?
Like the old season when Homer talked like this, it was like, hey, boy.
Versus
Now he's become a polished man. He's sort of flowing like this.
I mean, the transformation
very
of,
true.
so yeah. And then, it's just,
It's
I'm
funny
lucky.
when you did that. In my mind's eye, when you did the first one, I saw how they used to draw him.
100%, the old school animation stuff.
And then, when you transitioned, I saw the new way he was drawn. I was like, oh, that's really cool that I, that translated in my head.
I'm old enough that, I remember seeing the first episode, the pilot episode of The Simpsons on TV. I want to say, I might be wrong. I want to say it was on Thursday night at 8 o'clock or something, right
That
after,
sounds about right. Prime
But
time.
it was it was amazing. And yeah, I hadn't really seen any of the Tracy Ullman show. I mean, I had maybe around that time or maybe right after. I don't really know. It's all kind of a blur. But I remember seeing that first episode and, immediately locking into Homer's voice and, what? Back then, I was 10 years old. I think it was 1989 it premiered, something like that. And
Okay, yeah.
and I at that time I could do Bart perfectly. And,
of course.
because of the prepubescent, But I always tried to do the Homer impression because I always thought the Homer's voice was the most interesting to me. But, and then being a young kid who sounded like Bart, trying to, it'd be like Homer, but, or whatever it sounded like. It must have been terrible. And then finally puberty hit and all this stuff, and the Bart went away. And then I was stuck with, well, now I'm in limbo. I better try to work on Homer as my voice kind of gets a little bit deeper and fuller and stuff. And so I'd been doing the Homer impression, I swear, since 1989. So when the game came along, the games came along, that opportunity, it was just right place at the right time and years of practicing. You know what I mean? And that was the godsend right there. So that opened up the doors for me.
That's awesome.
That's a pretty seamless transition into the second question, which was me wanting to ask, how did you get started in this line of work? Not just in voice acting in general, but in this specific quality. And the impressions is obviously a huge part
but
of
yeah,
it.
going back to starting off in my career and stuff, the original, my jump. I mean, again, Indiana Jones and Dragon's Lair are the two things that really made me want to get into the acting world and turned me on to acting. Indiana Jones more, but at the same time, I was obsessed and always have been with Dragon's Lair. But that set me up for the voice acting and the on-camera stuff and love of cartoons and stuff, just being a kid, But Indiana Jones made me want to get into acting, and then around 9 years old, I started honestly, 9, 10 years old. I had already been a 2-year veteran of horror films, thanks to an uncle of mine who was big time into he loves horror films. A guy by the name of Doug, a good uncle of mine.
Shout out to cool uncles.
Yeah,
we salute you, cool uncles.
Yeah, totally. Here's to you, Bud Light presents.
I was just thinking.
Real cool uncles.
Real cool. Doug Ryder, who got me into horror films. Yes, to you, Doug Ryder. You helped set up a career that's been paying my bills for years. It's been paying his bills for years.
I was about to say, please drink responsibly. Out for all of that.
Corey, making sure everything's all
Winners
lining up.
don't use drugs.
Crossing I's and dotting T's. That's the Corey way.
Buckle up. Click it or ticket.
Always with the taglines. That's hilarious. So, so I just, around that, again, 8, 9 years old, I got my Fangoria magazine subscription. And
Oh,
it was,
hell
man.
Oh, yeah. I was gnarly at 10 years old. I'd be like, have you seen Friday the 13th Part 3, though? And kids would be like, my mom doesn't let me watch it. Anyway.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, so I was very lucky, very cool parents who have always supported me. And so around 10, it took me 6 months or so. I begged. The full long story is that I went to this Weekend of Horrors convention, again at 10 years old by LAX Airport. They had all these because I was a convention nerd, loved horror films and stuff. So 10 years old, my first convention. I met one of the writers who helped write one of the Friday the 13th films.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, very nice guy who I said, I want to be a special effects artist and stuff in horror films. And he was like, you should also be an actor. I was like, well, I'm going to do that too. But, I want to buy right now latex slash, that bleed. No, that's all I wanted to buy that year, and a Freddy glove if I could find one.
From personal experience, you can just duct tape forks to your hand.
Believe me, I did that. I actually got in trouble because I said to my dad, "Can I borrow some gloves?" And he had these black leather gloves. I was like, "Cool." I cut the tips off the gloves, each of the gloves, and I took our dinner knives, and put them in the gloves. He was like, "Is that my glove that I just gave you that you cut holes in the tips?" Yeah, so that didn't go.
I asked.
I was like,
anymore, Dad. It's mine.
Not anymore, Dad. I'm Freddy. Your son's dead. I'm Freddy now. Yeah,
Dinner served, bitch.
Welcome to prime time, bitch. So anyway, because of that Weekend of Horrors, the guy said, "Oh, you should there's these acting classes out in the valley." And where I lived in the South Bay, it was an hour 15 drive to get out to the valley. and to get out to this acting class. So it took about 6-8 months of me begging my parents, like, can I go to this acting class, please, 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 and really annoying them until they said, yeah, okay, fine, like, shut up, we'll take you. Yeah. So, but I didn't have any Hollywood in my family, really, to speak of, like, any networking. Fun fact is there's a silent movie star named Betty Blythe, who is like my great aunt. Again, shout out real American heroes. But I had a silent movie star, great aunt. I never met her or anything, but we had no contacts in Hollywood. So, so my parents started taking me to the acting class, and then my acting teacher, funny enough, I've just been very lucky. My acting teacher saw something in me. He decided to try his hand at being a manager. He signed me to him, he became a manager. He helped me get an agent, and then I started auditioning and stuff. By probably, I would say 12 years old, I was like kind of really auditioning for projects. So 2 years of just acting classes, finally, got an agent and stuff. So this is around 12 years old. Around 14 I would say, I think 14 or 15, like early 15, I booked a Pop-Tarts commercial. That was my first official job in Hollywood where I got a paycheck. And then soon after that, Mighty Ducks 2 came along. And I had already, around that same time, I also got into hockey at like 10 years old. So I was playing in the league. I was playing hockey and stuff. I saw Mighty Ducks 1 in theaters. And I thought to myself, man, if I could just be an actor playing hockey, that is like the two things that is like my world at that time, And so that I saw the movie in theaters, and I went, wow, that would be amazing, And 2 weeks later, I'm not even kidding, I was auditioning for the role of Portman, a different role for Mighty Ducks 2. And then, Portman was played by this kid, Aaron Lohr. He was one of these the Bash Brothers, these big guys, And so I tested. It got down to me and him for that role. We both tested for the role, so they had a little set built and the camera, and then we acted these scenes out like the old school. Now they just hire you or whatever they do. But back in the day, it was like a big thing. You go to Disney for the test shoot, and they'd build part of a set and all. It was like, yeah, for a kid who had never been on a set or anything, it was like, wow, I'm in the movies now, So I didn't book the role. Driving home, my mom got a page. This dates. Back in the day, you'd have their pager, and it'd be like beep 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 beep. Call this number. And so we pulled over, put quarters in the machine, and called the agent up. And they said, hey, you didn't book the role of Portman, but they said, hey, do you want to play this character Gunnar Stahl, who's like this Icelandic bad guy or whatever? And I was like, heck yeah, I just want to be in the movie. Yes, please. So. At first, I was kind of bumming that I didn't book the role of Portman, and being one of the Ducks. But over time, the character Gunnar Stahl has really like stuck with me, and like, the lines I got to say in the movie, like when I could go to my coach and I say, "Hey, you lost it for yourself" at the end of the movie. That became like a line that nowadays people still say, "Hey, Gunnar, you lost it for me," or whatever. So it's very cool that like I had like a tagline or something that was like known for my character.
You had something iconic.
Yeah, and still to this day. I mean, gosh, 30 years later, and so that was like 15, and then after that, there was a little lull and no work, and then I got some commercials. Worked on Full House, The Nanny, Just Shoot Me. And then I got a show in the late 90s, 1998, a show called City Guys, which was like a Saturday morning Saved by the Bell. Same producer as Saved by the Bell. He created another show called City Guys that was on NBC Saturday morning.
Okay.
And we did 105 episodes of that. In between there was Mighty Ducks 3. I went back and I was invited to be a different character in Mighty Ducks 3. So I didn't play Gunnar. I played a different character. And I almost played 2 different characters in that Mighty Ducks 3, actually. We did a table read, and there was like this, like kind of this little like, like hippie stoner kind of cool kid, long-haired hippie kid. And so at the table read, they were just like, Scott, why don't you read that guy? And so I was, okay. So I read that character also. When there's 28 characters in a film and there's only 13. Again, being a utility player, not realizing that would be my whole career. Like, hey, play this character also, voice this guy also.
And what was crazy was that the plot of the Mighty Ducks 3 is about a cloning machine that goes haywire and it starts spitting out defective clones.
Dude, you read their leaked script. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And then it got all the way to the top. And then at the head of
this is Hippie Gunner. He's
Yeah,
like
Hippie
regular Gunner, but
Yep.
he's a hippie now.
Yep. And then Mickey Mouse was like, "What are we doing here? This doesn't make any sense. What do you think, Goofy?" And Goofy's like, "Gosh, I don't think we should have that character." And anyways,
It's
the whole
high
thing.
concept. It's the new Honey, I Shrunk the Kids crossover. Rick Moranis has invented a cloning machine to do hockey real good.
Man,
No,
actually, that sounds kind of awesome.
It is kind of a great concept.
Stupid.
I wish they made that version.
Bad, wrong.
If it wasn't for Winnie the Pooh that then suggested at the board meeting, he was like, how about we just make another movie about hockey? And then so they're like, yeah, let's just do a hockey movie. And then, so thanks to Winnie the Pooh for throwing off the whole future of the Mighty Ducks, concept. But yeah, so then after coming off of City Guys around 2002 or so, I wanted to continue the voice acting, the on-camera acting thing. And that was, the arc of that was, I started doing these indie films and these Sci-Fi Channel films and things like that. And then these other indie films. And at that time, my career started like running out of steam in the sense, it just financially, like, at that time, reality shows had become so popular, and then movies were becoming, the budgets were just becoming lame. And it was like, hey, you want to do this $100 a day indie film? And it was like, okay, well, like 10 $100 a day indie films later and not much rent paid. It was like, well, this isn't working out. And then, like I said, there was a few years of that, like just doing these kind of films, which are great experiences, and I love doing them. And some of my favorite experiences were on these no money. In fact, I met my wife, and I married my wife eventually off of a film that not only paid $100 a day, but will never see the light of day. So, so that was a complete wash, minus the fact that it changed my whole life. So,
Sounds good.
Very true story, very worth it. So, but now, so we're at that point where like 2007 or 8, I'm kind of doing these films, and it's like, there's got to be something else, And I'd always dreamed about being in VO, but I'd always heard it's small groups, it's cliquey, it's like, it's who you can't, it's tight circles, and and my friend called me. I was playing music with, again, my friend Robin. And he called me up one day and he said, hey, they're looking for this voice of Homer Simpson. I know you do a great Homer Simpson when you joke around at rehearsals and stuff. Why don't you come over? I'll record you. I'll send it to the director. She's a friend of mine, and we'll just see what happens. And so I did. And I recorded this audition, and I sent it in. And a few days later, a week later, I booked the role. And then I did the first game.
Wow.
Over 2 days. And then I got a call randomly a few days later from an agency saying, hey, we heard you booked the Simpsons gig. Do you want to be a voice actor? And I was like, heck yeah. I've always wanted to be. And then I think about it, and looking back, it's like, Indiana Jones wanted to be an actor and all this stuff. But the through line of all of that was like I was watching cartoons and playing with toys well past 10 years old, where kids would make fun of me and call me a toy boy because I had a collection of He-Man figures and G.I. Joe and Transformers and all this stuff. And I watched these cartoons before school, and after school I'd get home because I'd want to watch Transformers before G.I. Joe came on. And like, it was like just I was obsessed forever. And I would just do the voices. I'd hear, Skeletor, not Skeletor, and I talk like this, He-Man, But again, I'm doing, I'm doing Starscream or Cobra Commander.
Oh, God, I love Starscream so much.
I was about to say, that sounds like Cobra Commander.
Very much so, my friends. Yes, this is how Cobra Commander would talk.
Something like that. And so I would sit there and I would hear the line and say it back, and then I would, and I'd hear the other character's line, try to say it back. I would literally sit there like very much like just saying words back and really studying words and not realizing this at a young age that I was prepping myself for a career,
Yeah.
So, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then so later on, all these characters, there's still some that I'd love to I'd love to, catch and be the voice of. But yeah, all these characters were all things that I kind of grew up with. So like I said, the Homer Simpson, do you want the old Homer or the new Homer? Do you want the old, whatever, or the new version? Or, like what season are we looking at for that voice? So yeah, or voicing Starscream. I got to voice Starscream, and they wanted the
Oh,
G1
did you?
actors. In fact, they had the
Yeah. I'm gonna pause. Which Starscream and for what?
Oh yeah, I voiced Starscream specifically. I voiced in the video game called Transformers Devastation, which
I
they
had that game.
Yeah.
I had that
Underrated.
game.
Underrated.
Yeah.
great game,
I
very
had that
cool
game.
Yeah, that was a game. Yeah, so that game they had a lot. They had a handful of the original actors from the G1 series.
Wow.
Yeah. So Grimlock, me Grimlock.
Yeah.
That's oh my gosh, I can't believe his name is like just jumped out of my head right as I. Oh gosh, he's gonna kill me too because he said Greg Berger, sorry, but he fantastic and an actor that was with my agency. The great thing also about my agency at that time, CESD, they were called. We would go into the offices because they had booths there and you could read and you'd sign a list and sit there and just like wait till your time was up and then you could go into the booth and record if you didn't have home recording stuff. So you'd just be sitting there with like amazing legendary actors, and one of them was Greg Berger, who's like I said, he's become a friend after all these years. Well, we quickly hit it off, but he'd be sitting there just a quiet guy just sitting in the corner. I'm like, hey, what do you do? Like, I recognize you from were you in like one of the Police Academy movies? He's like, yeah, Police Academy in Moscow. Yeah, that was me. Like, and I'm like, you do voice acting too, And then eventually it's like, yeah, I voiced Grimlock and I'm like, wait, hang on. You voiced Grimlock for Transformers?
The Grimlock?
Grimlock, yeah. And then, of course, they're all so cool. Like, me, Grimlock. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like freaking out at the agency, But we all do it because most of us voice actors are all very much nerdy,
Fans
nerdy
of each
people.
other.
Yeah, totally.
I've heard that from like watching like interviews and stuff for other voice actors. They all say, no, I'm fans of this guy over here. Like, I love him. I love her. Like, they're all cool.
And it's very true. I mean, I'm very lucky to be in the circle of people that I completely admire and flip out that I'm friends with. And then they come over for, like a holiday party or something, It's like it's like, wow, this is insane that I am like all of a sudden, like we just met and we're like hanging out together. So
best buds.
It's a great, they say like in this career, like, oh, there's no real competition, and while there is competition, we're all fighting for whatever jobs there are, not really fighting, auditioning, whatever. But you'll find like the veterans or people that really know where they stand in this business and have had these careers, that they're all very, and I've only learned from them, it's like they're all just very, there isn't really that competition. I sound like me, I can do my thing, you sound like you sound, but whereas on camera, every audition I would go to, there's just actors sizing each other up, or I'm mentally, and I'm part of that too. I'm looking at that actor going, oh, he's more handsome than me. Oh, he looks tougher than me. He's gonna get that role. But in this VO world, I can honestly say, in fact, I help friends get jobs in this business, and friends help me get jobs, and it's a very supportive. I've gotten to voice. Harrison Ford was an all-time favorite of mine, and I got to help do some voice matching for him for a huge film that I can't really talk about. I mean, just because I don't want to, because they have us. They prefer we don't talk about things, but a famous film that y'all know about. And
okay, I'm going to pause and we can cut it out. Are you referring to Indiana Jones? Oh, okay, but you did do some.
I worked on Indiana. Yeah, I worked on the new Indiana Jones film.
So like that came full circle, and you did end up getting to do some Indiana Jones.
I did.
Professionally,
No, and that's definitely like I was working up to that, Adam. So thanks for ruining the big crescendo. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Not at all.
I can cut it. I can cut it out. We can start again if you want.
No. You just keep it going. No. See, you give them the behind the scenes. See, that's the behind the scenes stuff people want to hear about this podcaster. Anyway, but yes, I've been, and that job was gifted to me through another voice actor who went to the job to voice that character, and they said, you know what? I'm not the guy. If you want the guy that sounds like Harrison Ford, you got to get Scott Whyte. So then I show up, and they're like, do you know what you're working on? I'm like, nope. And they're like, you're voicing this character. I was like, that's a dream come true. And then like, you know why you're here? Because Darren DePaul, I'll name names. My other friend Darren DePaul said that you'd be the guy that had to and turned down the role so that they would hire you. And it was like while he was sitting here in the booth. And so it's like, and that kind of taught me early on, with Robin helping me get in the business, and then Darren gifting me that character. It's like I can only pay it forward in this business, and you'll find most actors do pay it forward and help each other out, and really try to lift each other up and teach each other and bring each other, I've been lucky that there's been amazing, legendary voice actors that have done the same for me. That taught me what I sit here because of them. And so so that's my role in the evolution of voice acting, is to help the next generation of, like people find someone that I can help. And I try to do that as much as I can. In fact, I just find that like it makes me more fulfilled. I'd rather help out 10 other people at this point in my career than to just like, oh, move out the way, this is my job, So, and I give some of that to the looping, and now we're kind of moving on and evolving in this discussion. But I do this stuff, I do this type of looping, voice acting work called looping, which again is like live acting Foley work, where like the backgrounds of scenes. It's a very kind of egoless, it's like, you're kind of there, you're a tool, you're making the sounds that are going to get buried in the mix. No one will hear it anyway, but you're very much an intricate part of selling this film and translating that emotion. But in that world, it's very much very supportive and very, like, who should I, like, who's right for this role? Well, that's you. Corey, you sound like that guy. Hey man, I'm going to sit here and just watch you rock it. And we all inspire each other, or at least me, unless everyone's lying to me. But I go to these sessions, I get to sit in these studios again with amazing loopers, people that it's like, we need a 5-minute, they turned to us and go, hey, who can do like 5 minutes of an open heart surgery? We need 2 nurses and a doctor. And then again, my friend gets up, and my friend William gets up and is just like, yeah, I got that. And like gets, casual as can be. Like, meanwhile, I'd be wearing diapers and like, hey, this is, are you sure? And amazing, flawlessly for 5 minutes, rants with two other loopers, just like, caliper, calling out medicines and things that I'm like, hey, what's the PPB and the BBB? I'm like,
yeah.
I'm just like, holy Moses, these people are amazing, So I've had a career of just stealing everything from anyone else. Yeah, you need awesome. Starscream? I could steal that from him, Yeah,
all I'm thinking is like, that's just awesome that like people can just like, we need, like you just said, it's like we need like somebody doing open heart surgery or something like that. And I'm like, how would you, I had to think about it, like, what does that even sound like? And people could just get up and be like, no, I know what that is.
It's
I know what to do.
The maze, stuff like that. They say, the hardest things in looping is like hospital stuff. So like doctors and stuff, surgeries and stuff. Doing police stuff. I've been lucky enough to work on a ton of shows now where, I was scared for years of like, oh gosh, I'm on this show and it's just like 20 minutes of like Chicago police radio, like unit 14A Adam 13. We have a, whatever. I'm just riffing right now, but it's like, and they need it to sound right. And it's like, okay, so you watch a ton of cops, you do all your research, you write down stuff, you bring in your books, and it's like, this is my research book, and it's like all the firemen, police, city codes.
Wow.
It's all on iPads basically, but back in the day you come in with like a suitcase, these loopers, and it was all your papers of like, it was it's amazing. Some actors still are the old school. They come in with like a suitcase, or they roll in with like a tour, this is, how do you say word? It's, you take a travel bag with your clothes into a travel bag. But yeah, so they come in with like a suitcase, as we call it in America, and they just have their files in there, and they still are, like pull out pieces of paper, and it's like, wow, that's like the secret. 20 years, that was the same words you probably said in Titanic.
Wow.
And it was like, yeah. Anyway, but
that's very cool.
Just thinking about that, I'm like, how many shows have I watched where there's just background noise and
that's the fun thing. All of them.
Yeah, all of them.
Every show.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of like, because I always joked about that with like my siblings sometimes, of like, shows with like the old Disney Channel shows that had like kids in the background. I'm like, what are they even talking about? type thing. And it's probably just something like that, where it's just
That's
like,
why one of my favorite jokes is from Kung Pao, Enter the Fist, where they foreground some of that stuff, and there'll just be a group of children going by, and it'll just be like, we're children! We're children! We're children! And I don't know why, I find that so fucking funny.
I listened to this other YouTube channel before, and one of the guys, he used to do background like acting too. And he said like, because he was in the military, and he's like, oh, I kind of know that off by heart, but they're like, we just need you for this really quick scene to just do this stuff. And he just said, all I was doing was just naming cereal. And I was looking through the book. He's like,
that's amazing.
Frosted Flakes, and because he's
Flakes,
like,
Frosted Flakes. This is Cocoa Puff. Come in.
But it's like the cadence and the rhythm.
I thought that was so funny and so. I just find that so fascinating when
it is. It's fascinating,
like
and to experience it, it's fascinating too. And it's also it can be quite stressful. In fact, quick story adding to that military guy. One of my famous, like in the. Not famous, it's not like the lore right. But as voice actors, you sit around and you go like, what's your famous story about you like messing up in a job?
Of course.
Embarrassing yourself. And there's always like, well, I had to scream for 10 seconds. I passed out and I hit my head on the floor. Ambulances had to come. True story. Actors have done that on sound stages. But one of my stories is like we were working on a military show, like a war, like I can't remember the show. And maybe it's best I don't mention it. But and I was relatively on the news side of doing this stuff. And it's like you get a military show. It's like we need military radio in Afghanistan. There's battles, and it's like, where do I find military radio talk? Like I'm not, So you're scouring the internet, and you're kind of like, and then when you're a brilliant voice actor like me, you go, oh, I can just listen to clips of Call of Duty because they have military radio. So then you look up a clip and you're like, oh, this is golden. The AT-77 is, from the Northeast, 10 clicks out, and you're writing all this stuff down. You're like, hello. You get to the session and they go, hey, just when we do these military guys, this is Mark Treschner right here. He was a Navy SEAL for 28 years. He'll be listening in to make sure that we're doing the right radio frequencies for Afghanistan. In fact, when you talk, you do the call out, he'll respond on the walkie-talkie, and then you do a third line, like copy that over. And I'm like, oh, well, I just proved to myself, and now I need to know to have diapers whenever I work on stage. It's great. But I had my Call of Duty stuff, and that's pretty military, and that's pretty cool. So we're in the middle of Afghanistan. There's a war, there's battle, there's explosions, tanks, and all this stuff. And then we're in the line as actors, and it's like, you step up to the mic, get on the walkie, like, 102, we're being surrounded, 6 clicks out, whatever. And then the guy in the military, all right, we'll send a 10 APT coming to get you. Don't worry about that. We're going to get him over. And then he's like, okay, Roger. And this had, 6 actors. And now I'm like the last actor in the line. And I'm like, yeah, Captain, we have a AT-77 coming in from the north. And I'm like, nailed it. His response is, why would there be a Russian snow tank in the middle of Afghanistan coming to attack us? To it, I mean, everyone's worked so smooth. It was like just in, up, they would say left.
Yep.
Then he has to point me out. Like, why would there be a Russian snow tank?
Yeah.
And then
you're just like,
Call of
fine.
Duty.
Stop. For the record.
Laughed. It was a great laugh. I didn't laugh as hard as everyone else did as they pointed at me. But
and for the record, my name isn't Roger. All right.
yeah. So then they're like, hey, we still need more of these. Let's get back in line. We'll re-rack. We'll do it again. Scott, you can sit this one out if you want. And I was like, gladly. So that's a pretty that's a story I like to share with voice actors when we're saying things where it was like, when did you embarrass yourself at the mic most?
Totally.
Because it's like intense on the screen. There's explosions. Everyone. I'm just like, 1870. We got it from the north side. And they're like, why would there be a Russian tank? I don't know. Obviously, that moment replays in my brain all day long, and it's like something only a therapist can unlock, probably. But yeah, that's the great thing about looping. It's almost like how I said earlier, like being a voice actor. It's like one day I could be voicing a Batman character, and the next day I could be talking about a diabetic injectable. It's like as a looper, it's like one movie. You're on a horror film, you're working on the new Halloween film. Then the next day, it's like you're on the new Minions film, and then the next day you're on the next, Now you're on like a rom-com, kind of like a Christmas Hallmark film. And then the next day you're on an Indiana Jones film, you know. And then the full circle to the looping thing was, you know, that like got into acting because of Indiana Jones. And that's all I wanted to do was play Indiana Jones or be part of that world. And then when this last film came out, I got the call and I got to work and do voices on the film, which was a dream come true. My name's actually in the credits, which is
nice.
As a looper. Sometimes you get credits, sometimes you don't.
I did search for your name during the credits when we saw it.
It's
I
deep
did not
in there
find
because
it.
there's so many names. Well, you
There's
didn't
a
look
lot
hard
of
enough.
names.
Yeah, no, ADR looping is usually like at the bottom, you know, so you have to get through all the special effects guys. And on that film, it was pretty wild. Yeah, I remember sitting there like, oh, please, it's not going to happen. Oh, why don't they put my name up there? And then, you know, then finally it scrolled up. I was like, oh my God, they did it. You know, like I had to take a picture. But yeah, that was amazing. And then on top of that, I got to voice. Have you guys both seen that film? By chance?
I have seen it, but for our audience at home who's listening, spoilers for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny incoming. Fast forward 30 seconds if you're worried about it.
Coming in hot. No, there's. I got to voice. Various fight scenes and punches and efforts and grunt work, grunt double stuff as you said. My friend. Anyway, it was great. We were in a room full of just friends and everything, But the one that stood out to me is I got to be like a screaming Nazi, where there's a scene when like they're being chased in the beginning on motorcycles, and this one guy is being like kind of squeezed into like between a wall, and he's on his motorcycle. The motorcycle ends up blowing up and stuff. So I got to be the voice, and I got to do one of the famous, like growing up in every film, it was always to be able to say like. So when you hear, it's like the same, you always hear those same kind of like, it was like, do you need the full Wellheim or do you want something different or like, it was like, well, give me one, and you do, as the guy's like, it's riding and he's like realizing like Indy's there, but the wall's there. It's like, and then the whole thing kind of blows up. And then you hear the final version, all they used was like, and then it's just the explosion. You're like, oh, it was such a good scream, though. But you could totally hear my voice, and I was like, that's like a dream come true. Like finally being part of that world, And then multiple times over again with all going back to the Crash Bandicoot, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Transformers, He-Man. It's like all the things I loved as a kid. It's allowed me to just play and have a great living, and when it comes to that, so yeah,
that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's totally awesome.
Yeah, pretty great. But you guys, so what would you guys say? Because you guys both are cartoon. I mean, you guys are graphic artists, animators, art people. What cartoons inspired you guys?
Do you want to go first? You want me to? Adam.
Sure. I'll go first. So the thing that I've said before, and this is actually an upcoming episode where we talk about the Lord of the Rings, but the Lord of the Rings was my first film class. The behind the scenes features on the extended editions of those, it was just like 11 hours worth of behind the scenes, and I was just totally enraptured by them, and that really was the spark for me, where it's like I need to be involved some way in this world.
1,000%. Oh yeah, that's stuff. I mean, I think that was like one of the first films where they just went so deep, releasing all that behind the scenes stuff. Mm-hmm. And
I mean, to me, it's still unmatched.
He made me watch all of it.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Freshman year, he literally was like,
So for those that are listening to this episode, you guys were roommates in college, is where you guys met.
Correct.
Yes.
And so you guys would sit there and like, would it be like, okay, it's Adam night, and then Corey would be like, oh no, and then like, oh, it's Corey night to watch a movie, and Adam would be like, oh no, and then it was like, you had to
Actually, it's really funny you asked that. Like, what do you guys even do? I was like, actually, it's a lot of me watching Adam play like video games and like laughing at him when he dies, and him just going through certain games that he's like almost memorized. And then he would just ask me to, hey, you know what? You should check this out. Because he almost made me watch all 3 Lord of the Rings movies. This is the best thing ever. And I'm like, Okay.
It's pretty best.
It's pretty best.
Pretty
What,
important.
Yeah.
So, Corey, because you guys met in school, give it a report card grading. What do you think? Where do you think the Lord of the Rings sits in the grand scheme of things? And don't feel like because Adam's here, you feel pressured. Like
Don't
now I got to
sugarcoat
give
it.
it.
Oh
a
no. Oh, I've told him how I feel about him.
Let's go.
Which you guys will see later on.
Oh,
but,
okay. This is a future episode. Okay. Well, just
yeah,
a
but,
hint.
I mean, I could tell you, like the movies themselves, like the trilogy, really good stuff. Like for high fantasy is what I call it. And I'm pretty into high fantasy stuff anyway.
Yep.
And here's the thing. I've read The Hobbit. I've never read The Lord of the Rings. Okay. So I know the world. I just was like, I don't really know anything beyond The Hobbit. Right. So, and obviously that's a different story. When The Hobbit came out, I was like, yeah, I know this. Oh no.
Oh no, this isn't the cartoon version I saw back when I was...
which I remember seeing. And I was like, oh man, Ralph Bakshi, this is awesome.
Yeah,
No,
totally.
Rankin Bass did The Hobbit.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Ralph Bakshi did The Lord of the Rings.
I'm sorry, okay?
Wow.
Actually,
I'm sorry, okay? I got mixed up in my head.
apology accepted.
Yeah. That you can see that is his baby. He's like, don't ever talk to me and my son ever again.
Oh no, I know not to mess with. Yeah, I have a friend that's a huge Elvis fan, like Elvis Presley, and I thought I was a fan of Elvis Presley until I met this guy, and then randomly, when you're kind of like, well, I don't know how much he, and I feel I'm kind of the king of knowing about the king, and so Elvis sang Heartbreak Hotel when he played in Vegas, and he's like, well, he did, but that was only the summer of 77 when the set list was only 90 minutes long. And then, of course, by 72, he was already and I was
As we all know.
I was like, I'm going to shut up now. And then since then, it's just gone on where he's like, where I send him clips, I'm like, this is a cool clip. And then it'll be like, oh, that was actually August of 1980, it's 1977.
All right.
But he's like, oh, that was actually from the summer, that was August of 75 when he changed. The funny thing about that was he changed the set list because he wanted to blah, blah, blah. And I was like, don't care.
Yeah. I just clearly show you the clip.
Yeah. Sometimes, basically, Corey, what I'm saying is sometimes you don't want to be the ultimate fan like Adam because it's a cursed life you live, Adam. It's not easy.
We all kind of have our little thing that we just happen to, well, not necessarily little, but like thing that I find that we happen to just be like geeking out about, like just nonstop.
Most people got something.
No, yeah, most people got something. Here's the thing is, like, if it was just, like, too bad there wasn't streaming back then, because it would have been really funny for me to just comment on him just playing through things.
Yep.
Because that's what I would literally do. I was like, what the heck is going on? Yep. Oh, well, you see this, and then, we're playing Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, and he's like, at the end of the game, and he's pointing the gun, spoiler alert, at, what's her name? At his boss, the boss, and I'm like, push the button, Adam.
No.
Pull the trigger. Pull the trigger, Adam.
I don't wanna.
I'll do it. He's like, no, you're not allowed.
Wow.
I went through this journey. It has to be me.
Could you imagine if Adam is like Lord of the Rings, takes the ring all the way, and then Corey comes along, he's like, can I just throw it in the fire? And then like Adam would be like,
I am Sam.
It would be like the biggest argument ever, like at the top of that
What
mountain.
are you waiting for?
And I'd be like, no, I'm gonna do it. Like, you don't have to rush me. Why are you sweating me?
Yeah. Why do you sweat me, dude? It's already hot enough being up here.
Bro, I'm in the mountain of Arudrin, and you're just on my dick right now.
I'll throw it when I'm good and ready. I just crossed the whole country, if you didn't realize.
And I carried you up the mountain. Throw it in.
I know. I'm here at Kirith Gorgor, as we all know. Ready
Yes,
to
of course.
throw my ring into the crack of fire.
Oh my gosh. That would be amazing. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Just turns into a domestic dispute. Gollum shows up and it's just like, not now, Gollum.
Not now.
But the ring.
Not now.
That's amazing.
I was gonna mention. I mentioned like I really liked like early DreamWorks stuff. Like I know early DreamWorks stuff and early Warner Brothers stuff.
Okay.
One of my all-time favorite movies ever is Cats Don't Dance. I absolutely love that film.
Look at you, deep cut.
Yeah,
Good film.
I think it's super underrated. And also something like The Prince of Egypt, which I think is some of the best animation still.
Very
today.
underrated film. With you on that concept. That film, did that film even get any popularity, or did it just kind of come and go?
It's considered, like, of the early DreamWorks stuff is like their best work.
Yeah.
And then everything just started to trickle down after that. But it's still like, no, this film had everything. And I was like, that really inspired me. But another really thing that inspired me, because I've always liked voice acting and animation too, is puppets. I was really into, like, the Muppet Show. I was really into, like, old stuff like Eureka's Castle. And,
Eureka's Castle. Are you kidding me?
Man, I loved Eureka's Castle. And, like, I was that kid who watched the Muppet Christmas Carol on loop. I was and Muppet Treasure Island, which I didn't even see until, like, I was, like, a teenager. And then I was like, whoa, who is this guy? Oh, it's Tim Curry. What else is he in? And I lost my mind. I was Tim Curry is one of the most animated people, because I love people like that, like Jim Carrey and them too, who just love to move around, love to play around, and then they could do crazy stuff with their voices. And I was like, I want to do that. Yeah. And it's like animation. I could draw it and voice it. This is the dream job. Yeah.
That's all, it's very true, man. Eureka's Castle, that unlocked a lot of memories, right? I hadn't heard that title since probably 1994 or something like that.
I was that kid that rushed home
to watch that. I was just trying to think,
as Nickelodeon.
Was it like Eureka's Castle, then Double Dare or something like that?
Yeah, that was like that. That was that era of Nickelodeon when it was kind of split. I don't know if they still have Nick Jr., but it was like kind of on the tail end of Nick Jr. or something.
100%. And then it would become Nick at Night, and I'd be like, who cares?
Yeah.
And not realizing the joys of, like, getting older and realizing, like, dude, Bewitched is killer. That's a great show.
I watched a lot of Nick at Night.
See, I watched Nick at Night solely for Zorro. Zorro.
My Three Dads, I think they played on that back in the day.
That's when Nickelodeon had, like, all the good stuff on.
I'm gonna tell you a quick story too. There was a day back in the day they'd have these content like call into Nickelodeon if you're we're giving the first 100. This is the thing, we're calling to Nickelodeon. We have Bugs Bunny's something race, haunted house race or something for Game Boy, right? And it was like, call now, and, like, we're giving the first 50 callers, whatever, and I would try to call in and always be busy and stuff. This is on, like, a Tuesday, and I was sick as a dog, like, at home, so I got to stay home from school. That commercial came on, and I was like, well, here we go. I got nothing else to do, calling in. And it was like, hey, you're calling up, like, hey, what's your name and address? We're going to mail you this game. And I was like, are you kidding? Yeah. So I signed up. And I was like, I'm going to call again. That luck was in my... Called, rang right through. Hey, you're caller, we're going to give us your name and number and stuff. And I'm like, called again. And then I called again. And then I pulled out my school book. And I was like with the addresses of school friends, because I was like, who's got a Game Boy? Drew has a Game Boy. So I called back and they're like, hey,
that's how you know he's a solid homie.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm Archie Sherman. Here's my address. And I was like, man, I got like 15 of those Game Boy games.
That's amazing.
And like, actually, 5 of them went to friends.
Awesome.
5 of them went to friends. I kept one, and then I remember for the next few months, I'd go up to, we had this KB toy stores, and I would take like 3 of the games, and I'd be like, these games, like, I got them as a gift for my birthday. Can I turn these in and get... So they gave me credit, and I turned in those 3 games. I got another Game Boy game, Then I had to wait a month and come up with some other excuse. Like, oh, my dad it was his birthday, and he got mailed these games. Can I turn these 3 in?
This reminds me of just, like, the song and dance that goes into, like, movie theaters where it's like, halt, villain. do you have any outside food on you? And you're like, no, my good sir. I but have a coat draped over my arm, under which is nothing at all. And they're like, very well, I can see no evidence of your villainy. By all means,
Proceed.
See nothing.
And wrapping it all up, that would be the character I would voice in a video game these days. And that's why I am
Absolutely.
Scott Whyte, male NPC 17, a.k.a. the one you always walk by and never engage with.
Ah, God bless, non-interactive
You're still
NPC.
there.
Finally. Oh, and then you come up to me finally. I'm like, oh, finally, after all these years, now you want fish? Well, why don't you go fish off, pal? And then my character walks away. And that's the character you arrow in the back as he walks away.
Oh yeah, I'm
You
gonna
know.
sneak attack that guy in Skyrim for sure.
Yeah, I was about to say that sounds like a Skyrim thing.
Totally what I was thinking of too. So yeah.
I don't. It's like he turns around. There's nobody here.
Yep.
That's amazing.
I did want to wind down the episode, but like before I did want to just like call out one, how much I appreciate the spirit of paying it forward that you expressed as part of this career, because like that's really a big part of my personal philosophy, where so much of this creativity, just whatever it is, whatever form it takes, whatever industry, so much of it does come from the goodwill of other people who have come before, who are just excited about you, passionate about you, and want to extend that hand. And that really makes a difference. And so just genuine appreciation for that.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Yeah. It's nice it's nice when those opportunities do come up. And, I feel that like, as you get older, you just kind of realize, well, if I just open up a few doors for other people, I feel that opens up more doors for me somehow down the line.
Absolutely.
If not, it's just good karma. And it's like, and as they do say in this industry, there's so many jobs. It's like there's enough jobs to share with everyone. If you think of every aspect of voice acting, union, non-union, or just the whole spectrum of like, hey, we need a person behind a microphone, and everyone, the jobs that like, it's like jobs is, everyone has a place in this world. It's like there's jobs like audiobooks for me. I'm not a big reader, to be honest. I don't think I've finished a full book since high school. And even in high school, I probably just bought the Cliff Notes. But but yeah, like I feel that like, that's not my place. But I have good friends of mine, too, I can think of immediately, that are like insane award-winning voice actors for audiobooks. And that's kind of their main gig.
Yeah.
And like, that's amazing that like everyone, there's just, so that's why it's like, you know what? Maybe I won't give away the Skeletor gig if I don't have to, but there's certainly been gigs where it's like, in fact, over the weekend, actually, I had this great audition came up and and I was like, yeah, heck yeah, I want to audition for this. And I was like, I listened to it again. And I was like, you know what? And so I called my friend back. I'm like, I'll still audition for it, but I know who's going to book the job. And it was Darren DePaul, the person that I mentioned earlier. I was like, Darren DePaul is going to book this. So but again, it's like, I'm just a cog and I want the best piece in that machine, at the end of the day. And if it's not me now and where I am in my career and my life and stuff, it's like, I just want it to be the best piece because that will pay me back because in this business, they'll remember like Scott's the guy that hooked us up with Darren or whoever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, that makes me feel good. It actually, being on this path of like trying to be happier in life and stuff, helping people, I heard in this other podcast, like helping other people will give you more gratitude and more, make you feel more fulfilled and happier in the long
absolutely.
run. And so that's kind of what I try to, I try to just live by that now. It's like, you know what, there will be jobs that will come to me. There will always be jobs. So it's like, let's help, let's just support each other and stuff. So that's kind of,
and that dovetails into like another part of my personal philosophy. Not even personal philosophy. Like this is, you actually like did help like solidify this as like something that I believe in, which is just like when I was in college, I feel like I was genuinely failed so far as like they didn't teach us about networking and building relationships the way that they should have. And so much of that is just finding cool and interesting people, being friends with them, and developing a genuine relationship. And so when, the time comes for something to some kind of job, you are someone who they think of.
Yeah.
And that's really all it is. Like it's the relationship that I have with you is a real intangible value to me. And it is just because you are cool and interesting and you have that spirit of charity in you that I value.
Yeah, thank you, dude. Yeah, and you know what? And we've had a moment where we've experienced that kind of thing where both of us, like not too long ago, we were both having a day because of our own lives and work schedules and travel and all this stuff. And, and we even had that moment where we were like, you know what? Beyond all this work and this stress that we're trying to work through and stuff, we're buds. And let's just, let's just restate that and re-solidify that because everything we're doing right now and what we're trying to figure out and just plow through is stressful right now. But no matter what, this is where we stand, So now that we have just refreshed that friendship and we know that we're there, let's get through this together as we always do. But it was just that one particular moment. It was like, and I find with friends and stuff, it is important to have those moments where it's like, hey, I know that there's a lot of things going on right now and it's the holidays and all this stuff. But we're solid, dude. Like, you don't need to call me. We're not, like, I'm just talking about other friends in general. It's like, we're friends. And a good friend, you pick it up where you talked last and you just continue. It's not like there's no, like, getting on the person's, where were you the last 6 months? It's like,
Exactly.
good friends like you guys. And you guys are a perfect testament to that. It's like all these years later, you guys are now doing a podcast based on your, based on this beautiful friendship you guys have created. Yeah, who knew back then that this would become something to like put effort into that's rewarding for not only you guys, but for all your listeners, which is very cool, man.
I would definitely hope that. And I would like to add to what Adam was saying before is like the whole thing that, our like college education, like kind of a little bit failed in, teaching us kind of like the networking and social aspect of that. I'm like, we're kind of a testament to that. Like, me and Adam as friends, that's what this podcast is kind of about, is our just mutual agreement that things are awesome.
Yep.
And that we like generally love each other and we have that kind of relationship. And that's the beautiful thing, Corey, adding on to that. That's the beautiful thing and the testament about your relationship, you guys together. Because it's not, like a deep relationship doesn't always just happen in a few months or whatever, and like I'm thinking to my best friend is a guy named Steve, a buddy of mine that we got in trouble in Spanish class sophomore year of high school together, and we like the same band. And I only know this because we had to do a terrible Spanish presentation. Like, what is your favorite band? Mi favorito bandito. Like that's, we both didn't do good in Spanish. Let's be honest. That's really funny.
And we would get kicked out of class all the time together. We'd start laughing and stuff, But that's how we became friends. But now all these years later, and we're talking, I'm not young anymore, but we're talking a bunch of decades later. We're having discussions that are even deeper than we've ever had, and life discussions. And it's like, and it's so awesome to have someone that you have such a history with. Steve was there. He flew to Minnesota when I was shooting Ducks 3 and was even my guardian because he was 18 and I was 17. So and my mom wanted a break, so she went home and hang out with the family, and I was, for 2 weeks, Steve and I had the most awesome hang, He's been on movie sets, TV sets. When I did City Guys, I even got him as an extra, so he was in the background in a few episodes and all this stuff. But now, we give each other life, career advice, life advice, and it's awesome to have someone that's like, I know why you're here, because you and I have this connection that runs deeper than, this whole facade of all these other people and everything, you know what I mean? But it's great having a Steve, and so Corey, it's great having an Adam, and Adam, it's great having a Corey, So cherish these friendships. And it's awesome that you guys can have created something creative together as an outlet, and then you guys also said this is a great podcast because you get to know each other, and that's really it's neat to watch a friendship or whatever evolve and grow while on the air too, or find new things about each other. It's like, wow, it's cool to be like, dude, what, how did I not know that about you?
Well, yeah, it's very rewarding. I've known there's multiple times where I've Adam has said some things and I'm like, wait, what? I didn't know that. I didn't know you were involved in that
Uh-huh.
or anything. And he's like,
You didn't
Yeah.
know that the first website that I ever created at the age of 12 was a fan site on Angel Fire for the Godzilla 1998 movie starring Matthew Broderick?
yeah.
That's a
No,
hard
that was-
unfriend, is what that would be.
No, that's until he mentioned that he used to be into like hella into Mortal Kombat, and I was like, wait, whoa. Me, who's like a huge like fighting game fan, I was like, wait a minute, and he's like, I used to draw them all the
I
time.
doodled it.
So you're saying
Constantly.
there's 3 Mortal Kombat fans in this group right now talking?
Oh yes.
Mortal Kombat!
Yes. Okay, final thing as we're winding down. What's your favorite game?
Of all time?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Dragon's Lair.
Dragon's Lair?
Still.
Okay.
I got the arcade
Yep.
around here every few months. I flip it back on and I go,
Oh man, that's
let's
so
see if
awesome.
let's see if Daddy still got the skills.
Oh,
baby."
you have the actual like cabinet.
Well,
Oh
I have
man, that's
my goal is to buy eventually when I get brave enough. I'd love to buy an original Laserdisc player and do that.
Oh,
but now,
yeah.
but now there's amazing stuff. I had got this,
Yeah.
I don't know, 1UP Arcade or whatever. It was a Kickstarter
Yeah.
thing, and it's Dragon's Lair themed, and it's good enough. I put it on top of this big guitar amp with all these lights and everything, and so
That's awesome.
yeah, so it looks so cool just sitting there. Yeah. So
Cool.
And then now, I'm glad that we've all gotten that out of our system. Scott, it's time, if we can actually look at the script. Starscream saying, you took my clothes out of the laundry, but they're still wet.
Are they-
You took my clothes out of the laundry, but they're still wet.
Mwah. Marvelous. Moving on, one more. I've made you do this before, but like I just want it for posterity. Please give me Han Solo talking to Chewbacca, asking him if he would do it for a Scooby snack. Would you do it for 2 Scooby snacks?
oh man, that's a good one.
All right, you know what we need to do, kid. We gotta get through that wall. All right, I heard what you said. Would you do it for a Scooby snack? All right. Would you do it for 2 Scooby snacks? All right, here's your 3 Scooby snacks.
I don't know. See, it's not as good as.
Now let's get through that door.
I was about to do like a Sand
Beautiful.
Raider.
Oh yeah, that's what it's becoming. That's what I was realizing. I'm like, why does Chewbacca sound like a sand raider all of a sudden? Why is there a Russian tank in the middle of Afghanistan?
Ask him the real questions.
Yes.
Wrap it up,
And
furball.
with that, we will officially let you go. Scott, thank you so much for joining us and
Yeah.
putting a spotlight on some of the very cool work that you are so privileged to do. And I am very privileged to count you as a friend.
Thank you guys. Yeah,
And I hope I am starting to build that friend meter up with you right now.
Corey, you're
too.
gonna get 6 of my digits for my phone number. You just have to guess the
Ooh.
last few. But,
Oh man.
but
Is it between 1 and 0?
that actually is the 2. 1 and 0 are the 2 numbers. You
Yeah.
are correct.
Yeah. I won.
You want a
I
family
won.
for back to Disneyland.
And
No,
here's a copy of this shitty Game Boy game.
And here's a copy of Bugs Bunny's Race Through the Haunted Castle for Game Boy.
Oh man. Well, thank you guys so much. Yeah, it's great. It's a fun podcast. It's a fun podcast.
It's a fun podcast, Doc.
It's a fun podcast to listen to you guys, 2 legit friends chatting as you guys do. And that's always interesting because it's not just like 2 fake people trying to make a podcast, which is always boring. So, and thanks for letting me be part of this whole thing. This has been like a fun little hang, man, and getting to know each other a little
Absolutely.
bit, man.
Yeah, this has been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah, it's great. It's nice to be able to sit here and have a career that, because if we were talking about on-camera acting, I wouldn't have a lot to talk about since 1999. No, but it's great to, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky to be in this career, and I think it's a fascinating career. It's something I've always wanted to be part of,
and now I get to be part of it. And so part of the joy is sharing what it's like being on the inside or being able to do this side of my career. It just is. I find it fascinating, and I know there's other nerds out there just like me who would find it just as fascinating. So any of these little stories and stuff, I love all that stuff. And,
No,
you
we
know,
love it
it's
too.
like the whole classic, if I could do it, you could do it. So, you know, voice acting is something that people can be doing nowadays with technology. Having a mic in your house, you could be doing this from your home wherever you are. It's not just necessarily living in Hollywood. But it's great to live in this day and age where you can give that a shot if that's something that you want to try in this world. It's amazing. It's awesome. So a couple $100, you could be like a full-time voice actor that's stealing jobs from me. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. And on that note, I'm going to go outside with my sign that says, "Can you give me $5? I'm a voice actor." And I'm going to go stand on the road. So
Awesome.
thank you guys
Can
for
you say
having
goodbye
me.
in Simlish?
Sul daba korbahe nibo gawamba.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
All right, and with that, we have let our guest go. Once again, thank you to the wonderful Scott Whyte.
Yes,
this
sir.
is the end of our show. So if you have any questions, comments, or suggestion for a topic of an episode, come hit us up. You can contact us either at halftonetakes@gmail.com or swing by the Discord. We're always available.
Yeah, cool. And check out the Instagram because I'm gonna be uploading some stuff, some cool stuff. If you
He
keep
does
up with that,
good work.
you might get some goodies.
Yeah. If you've enjoyed listening, please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, or wherever else podcasts are rated. Word of mouth is the only way that we grow. So if you like the show, tell a friend. Scott, if Bill DeWeese doesn't listen to this, I'll know.
He'll know. I won't.
No. I have been Adam Bucherri. I'm an animator and game designer. You can find my tabletop games on boocherry.itch.io. That is boo like ghost, cherry like fruit.
Ooh. Scary. And I have been Corey Revis, illustrator and comic creator. You can find me on Instagram at EARTHUR_ONE. That's Earther1. I'm going to start drawing on there a lot more. And also check out my comic on Webtoon. It's called Dawn of Time. It's
You should
about
check
the
it
first
out.
Mother Time. It's awesome.
And with that, Corey, you need to leave.
I thought you were going to say, get out of here.
Oh, we've done the get out bit too many times. They can't keep getting away with it.
You need to go. You get out.
Get her.
Get out. Get out.
I am going. Jeez.